If there was any doubt, and there wasn't really much before that moment, that was the dagger. That was the instant. That was the epiphany, if one was needed, that the 49ers were the better team than the Giants. The 49ers moved to 3-0 with 3 straight 30-point games, and the Giants, although they hung around, it never felt like they had a real chance to win. It was just how respectable can they make it? And at the end of the day, not very, because the spread was 10.5 and they lost by 18. And with that, I say good morning, Peter King. We're here for 2 hours of PFT Live. What was your first knee-jerk reaction to what we saw last night?
Well, my first reaction after listening to that clip is that the play-by-play man said that may have been the dagger. I mean, come on. May have been the dagger. I mean, you think the Giants are scoring 3 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes of a game that they could get nothing done all day? And look, I don't blame Daniel Jones. I just want to start with one point about the Giants. Daniel Jones, basically, for the first 12 quarters of this year, I think it's wrong to say he's been running for his life at all times, but he had no chance last night. You know, the New York Giants have spent $1 jillion on their offensive line, and this just in, it hasn't worked. And obviously, you're missing Andrew Thomas, and that hurts. But so that's my take on the Giants. My take on the San Francisco 49ers is that when I sat in the office of John Lynch, whenever it was, a month ago, 5 weeks ago, I asked him, man, Javon Hargrave, you spent $1 jillion on him with all the stuff you're going to need to spend in the next couple of years? And he just said, you know, we entered this offseason without thinking that we'd ever go into a big ticket item on our defense. But we decided, Kyle Shanahan said, I remember what our defense was like in 2019. And when you have a defense like that, even if you have problems on other parts of your team, you are going to be in every game. And that's what I thought of last night when Hargrave sacked Jones, when Nick Bosa was buzzing around him the whole night. And I just thought, if you have 2 or 3, you had Eric Armstead, you had Fred Warner when he comes, Dre Greenlaw. This team right now is going to be a load for anybody to block for 4 quarters. That's all there is to it. This is the 49ers of 2019. And Mike, I understand that it's going to be a problem in 2024 and 2025 when you've got to figure some way to get Brandon Ayuk signed, when eventually you're going to have to sign a quarterback to a market contract. I get it. But all I know is this year, right now, today, after I watched that game last night, this is a defense that is going to be really, really good and hard to stop all year. And, you know, they've got to keep Deebo Samuel upright. That's all I can say. Because that catch he made on the pylon in the end zone, he is a great physical player. I loved how Amazon last night picked out the Mark Bavaro rumbling, bumbling, stumbling catch, you know, more than 3 decades ago when he bowled over a bunch of 49ers and carried Ronnie Lott for 7 yards, because that's exactly what Deebo Samuel does. And the 49ers were wise. Instead of just drafting a bunch of speed guys, they drafted physical receivers. Because I think, Mike, that is where the NFL is right now. The speed guys can get hurt more easily than the guys who are built and weigh 223. And so that, to me, I thought last night, even though the Giants are not a great test for a really good team right now, I thought the 49ers did well on both offense and defense to show that they are going to be here and they are going to be a problem for everybody in 2023.
One thing you said about the salary cap situation in the future with guys they're going to have to pay, earlier this week, General Manager John Lynch pointed out that they're going to roll over the $40 million in cap space they currently have available, the most of anyone right now. That's going to kick to future years, as every team can automatically do. And so they'll have that extra cushion, and the cap keeps going up and up and up, and the good teams find a way to make it all work. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions. After 2019, I can't remember whether it was 2020 or 2021 when they traded DeForest Buckner to the Colts, but you got to make some tough decisions because you can't pay everyone, but they're paying who they need to pay, and the guys who are there are getting it done. And you throw in that ability to draft guys, and Chris and I talk about this all the time, Peter. They have a knack for finding guys who will roll out of bed and run through a wall. And they don't need to practice tackling. They don't need someone to access a switch somewhere inside of them and flip it. They flip it themselves when they roll out of bed. And it's Deebo Samuel, it's George Kittle, it's Christian McCaffrey, it's everyone on the defense. There's no hesitation. That's one of the things that Kyle Shanahan preaches, no hesitation. It's very sudden. You see the ball carrier, you go put him on the ground. You have the ball, you see someone trying to bring you down, you run through them and keep going. My only concern is this, because the Deebo Samuel touchdown catch came after he fought for extra yardage, came down hard on the ball, was holding his midsection as if he was really injured, and there was a concern, there was a gasp, there was a sense that, that effort to get every last drop that you can out of every play can make you more susceptible to that finish to the play that may make it harder for you to get up. And they play that way all the time. George Kittle plays like that. Every play is fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. Every play is get as much yardage as I can and fight and fight and fight and fight. And you just wonder what the limit of that is. If you push it just a little too far, if you go just a little too hard, if you don't just go down and live to fight another play. That determination that they show, which is so admirable, is the kind of thing that can get somebody hurt because they are constantly stressing their body to get every last inch of grass they can.
Well, Mike, remember Franco Harris? And he used to get a lot of criticism in his career, especially, maybe in years 3, 4, 5, where people would basically look at him many times and think, well, that's not the Steeler way. This guy's not fighting for every yard. Well, and Franco Harris would sort of subtly say, I'm here every Sunday. And his point being, essentially, that I am going to be available for 16 games every year after they went to 16 games in 1978. But I'm going to be available for 16 games every year. And Mike, I thought of the exact same thing last night when Deebo Samuel was laying on the ground. I think there needs to be, for the 49ers, sort of a Tua class, okay? And by that I mean, what did Tua Tagovailoa do in this offseason? What he did was he learned how to fall. He learned how to avoid some of those crushing big hits that end up with his head smacking on the ground and him being concussed. And look, I'm not saying that the 49ers need to change their way. The 49ers are a physical rolling ball of butcher knives. I get it. But what I am saying is that there are times, and again, I know this is going to sound counter Kyle, but there are times when you're far ahead in the fourth quarter of a game where you have to tell your body and you got to tell your switch. I was glad to see them take Christian McCaffrey out of the game late because he doesn't need to be running in a game that has already been decided. And so I think you have to sort of differentiate between the time that you're in a game, and people are going to say, oh, can't do that, can't turn the switch off, can't flip from being all go to 80% go. I think you can, and I think the 49ers probably should, as well as, not playing a guy like Christian McCaffrey every snap in a game, even if it is a close game. You need that guy desperately. He has an injury history. Now, he has not missed a game since what, 2021 now. So he's reversing the trend. But I think you need to just be a little bit cautious in a season like this of when you play as physically as the 49ers do. Give those guys a blow and make sure that they're going to be there for 17 weeks.
And it's not that McCaffrey is prone to injury. It is that the position he plays is extra conducive to getting players injured, as we saw on Monday night when Nick Chubb is just carrying the ball and he's being tackled and somebody comes in low. That's what happens when you are carrying the ball. You get hit from every possible angle and you potentially get injured. And every play you kind of hold your breath with McCaffrey. He had a reduced snap count last night. He was only on the field for 61% of the offense, 51 plays. He had played every snap on Sunday, and I thought he would be not used as heavily last night on that short week after every snap against the Rams, but he still had 23 touches. Peter, he's averaging 24 a game. He's had 25, 23, and 23 now. So he's still got his work in those 61 snaps.
Yeah.
51. On the field 51 times and touched the ball 23 of the 51 times he was on the field. I mean, that's amazing. And when he didn't have the ball, they praised him at one point for throwing a block when somebody else was running the ball. So this guy, the problem is there is no switch. You can't turn it off with these guys. You just have to know when to get them out of the game. And Kyle Shanahan said in the aftermath of the Steeler game, when he had guys, key players, on the field late in what was a 30-7 thumping, when do you get those guys off the field? And Kyle pointed to week 1 of the 2021, or I think it was 21 season, when they were up big over the Lions and the Lions came storming back. Like, when is it truly over? When can you comfortably say we're calling off the dogs? Now, last night after that touchdown that may have been the dagger, we saw Tyrod Taylor come in for Daniel Jones, so it was over. But when, as the 49ers, if you're making quick work and easy work of these opponents and scoring 30 a game, when do you say, enough, we got to get these guys out of there, because they can't turn it off. So we have to get them out. We can't turn off the light, so we just got to take the light over here and keep it safe.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a question I think that I'm sure Kyle Shanahan is loath to ask his team and to talk about internally. And I'm sure part of him is going to say, heck no, we're not going to do it. But Brandon Ayuk did not play last night. That does not help the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the good thing for them, and Mike, this is such an interesting question because I think 94% of the players in the NFL would say, I hate the Thursday night game. And it's just not time enough for our bodies. And I respect what those guys think, obviously. But there are also I wouldn't say a silent minority, because in training camp this year, Jason Kelsey talked openly to me about how he loves the Thursday night games. And he told me, he goes, listen, it's great. We don't practice in the days before the game. All you do is you have a glorified walkthrough or two. And then in the middle of a season that is just a Bataan death march, and those are my words, not his, you have 3 days, and in some cases 4, depending on who your coach is, that you are given that you can just go somewhere. You can be away, that you don't have to be at the facility at 7:30 in the morning, and stay there all day. And so I do think there is part of the Thursday night game that some players like in terms of the extra time off and all that. And in this particular case, I bring it up mostly because now Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey have 3 or 4 days with zero activity. And, of course, McCaffrey is a nutty workout guy, so he'll do some things. And obviously they're going to get treatment and all that. But essentially, mini buys during the season, I think some guys like it because it allows them, first of all, to miss one complete week of practice and then to have 3 or 4 additional days where you're doing nothing. And I think some players like that.
Well, and you said the number 94%, and I know you were just kind of pulling out a rough estimate to make the point.
Yeah.
I think the real number is a lot lower than that. Back when there was an actual debate about short week football, before it was so clear that it's here to stay, it's not going anywhere, it's going to be one of the features and facets of the NFL schedule every single year, I would, when talking to players, ask them, and I got something close to 50-50. I was surprised at how many were like, yeah, it's easy.
That does
Monday,
surprise
Tuesday,
me.
Wednesday at practice. And we have a mini bye on the back end. It's not as demanding. Yeah, we got to play 3 days earlier than we would have, but the workload in advance isn't as stressful on the body, and we have that extra time off. I don't know if you saw earlier in the week where Kyle Shanahan talked about what a mess it is to get your team ready for Thursday night. When you're a coach who spends a lot of time studying film, crafting a game plan, specifically aimed at attacking the weaknesses in the defense you'll be facing, and you have to take a 6-day window and scrunch it down to 3, that creates an issue from a coaching standpoint and a quality standpoint. That's one of the things the NFL never talks about. When you expect teams to play with 3 fewer days in between games, you make it harder for the coaches to whip up the best possible schemes and plans to have the best possible game. Not that it affected the 49ers last night. Oh, and they get to do it twice this year. They're one of the teams that got the short straw for the short week 2 times. We'll have them Thanksgiving night on NBC against the Seattle Seahawks. So 2 times that'll happen. So they got one early, they got one later. And then there's that possibility of a flex. I don't think it applies to them since they already have 2. And I don't think the league is going to do it this year, but who knows? But you could find out that you didn't expect a short week and you got a short week. But it's here to stay. It's here to stay. The point is this. It's all the more important to know when to get those guys out of the game on a short week in advance of that 10 days. Because that's, as you're probing for flaws with the 49ers, one of the flaws is some of these key guys are going to get hurt because they do treat every snap and every time they have the ball like they're trying to score a touchdown on the final drive of the Super Bowl. And there is a point where you just got to get down because it's that last extra bit that can get you injured, and that doesn't help anybody. And I think we agree on that 100%. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.